Respected Vice Chancellor,
Honorable Sri Swamy, my colleagues, Ambassador Sanjay Singh, Sagarika Ghosh, friends, experts, and most importantly, the students who are the inspiring force for me all these years. More than 3 decades ago, it was Dr. Subramanian who started my interest in Israel and the wider Middle East. It's in November 1982, he wrote an article in Sunday, which is now defunct, on why India doesn't have relations with Israel and India should change its policy. And you know, like many of us, I also read the article, and that is where I was sucked into Israel. And it looks like yesterday, it's 37 years, I have nothing else to do except focus on the wider Middle East. And I think, you know, this is where the whole journey began. A couple of years ago, I met Dr. Swamy at a social gathering. He asked me simply one simple question. Are you writing any book? You know, that was after all the things people have been talking about JNU, and the only thing he thought of asking me was, are you writing a book? And his presence today, I would say, is a sign that his interest in my academic journey all these years. Thank you very much, sir. The book is not about India's bilateral relations with Saudi Arabia. It is how India viewed, understood, and responded to various developments of this kingdom. That is how we try to do it from the beginning. If you look at Indo-Saudi relationship, certain terminologies are very common. Historical relationship, geographical proximity, energy security, Islam, expatriates, trade, remittances. And if you look at very closely, we don't walk the talk. That was the case for a pretty long time. It is not that we have neglected the region. Jawaharlal Nehru visited most of these countries, including Saudi Arabia. The problem was, during that time, India's policy towards the region was Cairo-centric. And therefore, Saudi Arabia became a victim of Nasser's understanding and policy towards the wider region. And this is how the whole thing was happening even under the Cold War, much of the period. India gradually lost its influence, and India was not an economic power until the 1992. The milestone for us was 2001, when Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee made a calculated decision to delink Pakistan from India's wider Middle East policy. Until then, we looked at the world only to the Pakistani prism. Vajpayee decided to make a break. The reason was simple. India cannot be aspiring to be a great power while competing with Pakistan on a daily basis. So either you are a South Asian power or an aspiring Asian power. And that was the decision. You made the transition. And that is how the relations have evolved since then. And if you look at the Saudi leadership, they often mention India is a friend, Pakistan is a brother. If you are very familiar with the Indian epics and history, I would rather be a friend than a brother. Because friend is a calculated, informed choice. Brother is something you can't control, it is given to you. So if the Saudis see me as a friend, I feel honored in the process. But if you look at it, the real transformation happens, ironically, after Prime Minister Modi took over office. In spite of the thinking or reading by a section of the Indian elite, his attitude towards the Middle East has been accommodative, inclusive, respectful, pragmatic, and above all, realistic. He was not into any moral posturing. He recognizes India as an interest, so he was able to accommodate all these countries. That is why you'll find Israel and Palestine, Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Iran, and Turkey and Syria. All the countries are actually quoting India in the last 4 years. And there is certain, I would identify 4 broad things and then I will end. Prime Minister Modi has been cultivating the Saudi leadership since the Brisbane summit in 2014. He is using all the G20 meetings to meet the Saudi leadership. And if you look at the state visit in 2017, he has met them 5 times in the last 4 years. That is something remarkable. But this was not in isolation. If you look at it from 2014 till today, the political visits have taken place with all the countries of the Middle East. The only exception was Libya, which is war-torn, where India doesn't have a mission. Otherwise, senior Indian leaders, I'm talking political leaders, have been visiting the entire region. This is something which has not happened since 1947. We have been selectively visiting, a holistic thing was not there. And the third thing was, Modi has been using the earlier contact to transform the relationship from a transactional one to the strategic partnership. If you look at the Indo-Saudi relations, they are talking in terms of joint ventures, Saudi investment in India's strategic oil reserves, petrochemical industry, and possible Indian shares in Aramco, the largest oil company in the world. These are not commercial transactions. These are all strategic decisions which are indicating a greater things. And similarly, India had to compete with a number of new players in the process. China and Russia are a competing power. US is actually declining influence. And Iran is trying to dominate the region, which is going to affect the Indian relationship. If you look at the results, in the last year, India has overtaken France as the 6th largest economy in the world. With Brexit, probably we will be overtaking Britain sometime this year, which means India will be the 5th largest economy in the world. And if you wanted to grow further and have a political ascendance in the process, Saudi Arabia is going to be a key factor in India's foreign policy discourse. I think that is what our submission is going to be. There are enormous challenges for both the countries. And if you look at extremism, extremism is a threat not only to India, but also to Saudi Arabia. That convergence has enabled us to work on a whole range of security issues, and which was completely unimaginable until recently. And both the countries face a number of challenges, hurdles, and everything. And I think I will stop. If you want to know more, over to the book. Thank you very much.